Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here to talk about video games. As you may know, Metroidvanias are one of my favorite genres, so I tend to play a lot of them, and there were no shortage of them coming out in 2023. I sampled 9 of them, whether playing to completion or just for a few hours until I had a good handle on things. Here are my thoughts on those, starting in order of release date.
Elderand was developed by Mantra and Synergia Games. This is a pixelated Metroidvania that can be quite gruesome and definitely takes inspiration from the Castlevania side of things. You can choose your weapons, equipment, and special abilities. Basic builds include a sword and board warrior, quicker thief-like attacks, or ranged use of magic and staves. There's also a bit of crafting to create and upgrade your items.
The pixel art here is really impressive, and the environments, whether it's forest, desert, or gothic castle, always look great. The controls are responsive and movement feels good.
There's not a whole lot of platforming challenge, but the world is still fun to explore, as there are lots of not only items to find, but also little decision-making points, most of which have you making sacrifices to get more powerful. The combat is satisfying and the bosses are quite impressive looking. Some of them were pretty tough, though you can carry up to 3 health potions, which help a lot with them.
I found Elderand to be a very solid Metroidvania. It doesn't do a lot that you won't have seen before, but it's fun to play and is a relatively short one.
Romancelvania was developed by Deep End Games and mashes up Metroidvania and dating sim. You play Dracula, who has been moping in his castle for 100 years after his last breakup. He's pulled into a dating reality show, and you need to explore the castle and lands around it to find and date new contestants.
I was really excited about the concept of this one and really enjoyed the first hour or so. I especially liked the writing, which was funny, flirty, and very horny.
I liked the designs of the monsters you were dating, from Medusa to werewolves, devils, and sirens. But the gameplay, it just wasn't good. The whole game seemed too zoomed out. It never felt like I could get enough perspective. Plus, most of the levels were so dark I could barely see anything anyway. Dracula's character model felt too large for the areas he was exploring, and I'd often get stuck on terrain. And combat was weightless. There was no feedback when you hit something, either tactile or audio.
The game was at its best when it really leaned into the dating aspect and the writing, but as it went on, I felt I was spending more time out in the world exploring and trying to find new contestants rather than actually talking to them. The lack of map also made this way more time-consuming and frustrating than it needed to be.
Vernal Edge was developed by Hello Penguin Team and has you playing a young woman on a quest for revenge. This is a fast-paced pixel art Metroidvania where you have access to many different islands to explore. You have a ship to travel between them in a way that is unique, but also a little tedious for exploration when it's not clear where you should be going. Combat uses a series of directional attacks along with spells, and you need to block or use strong attacks to break enemy defenses.
This does make all the enemies feel a little spongy, and the world is littered with battle rooms that will lock you in until you've defeated everything. I'm not a fan of these.
Exploration is a bit of a mixed bag. The map is tiny and hard to read, though there are a number of upgrades and shortcuts to find. There are a ton of platforming challenges, as you'll be sliding along ropes and being launched across rooms, having to avoid falling into pits or running into spikes. These are fairly fun, though the controls are a little slippery for my tastes. At least when you do fail, you respawn immediately and close to where you were, just missing a little health.
I'm only a couple hours into Vernal Edge, and so far, it's alright, just kind of underwhelming.
Curse of the Sea Rats was developed by P-Toon Studio. The crew on your ship has been turned into rats by a witch, and they are trying to regain their human bodies.
This game has beautiful art and animations, and I was so excited about the fact that you can play it couch co-op with up to 4 players. Unfortunately, actually playing the game is a chore. Controlling it just feels bad.
The jump feels too low, the inputs are laggy. Often, if I tried to make a quick directional change, my character just didn't turn around. Attacks have incredibly short range, and coming into contact with enemies hurts you. Waiting for the animations to play out just makes everything feel so unresponsive. Playing co-op also introduced its own problems, as if a player lagged behind or went forward too quickly and went off screen, they had only a couple seconds to get back or they just die. Though there were 4 different characters to choose from, they don't play all that differently.
A lot of effort obviously went into how this game looks, but it really needed more time on how it plays. Neither me nor my co-op partner ever wanted to go back to this one after our first play session.
Afterimage was developed by Oregon Shanghai and Neteraco. This is a huge game with a detailed and complex story that I didn't pay attention to at all. In fact, my biggest complaint about it is that there's too much dialogue, but most of it can be skipped or fast-forwarded through.
Actually, that's really my only complaint, as I thought Afterimage was a lot of fun.
There are a lot of RPG elements in this one, as you can level up, have a large number of weapons, sub-weapons, and magic to choose from, equipment to wear, and talents to invest in. You can do a lot of customization to find a playstyle that suits you, or the kinds of enemies you're currently up against. Afterimage is gorgeous, with backgrounds and characters that look painted, and there is a huge amount of variety in the environments. There are also a ton of secrets to find and shortcuts to open. Combat and movement feels good, and the boss fights are a lot of fun. There's also plenty of challenging platforming segments that feel great to conquer.
If you want an expansive Metroidvania that's going to give you many hours of playtime, Afterimage is a great choice, and I highly recommend it.
The Last Case of Benedict Fox was developed by Plot Twist. In this Lovecraft-inspired game, you play a detective with a demon companion in his head, out to solve a mystery in a gothic mansion. This one combines platforming and combat with puzzle solving and an almost overwhelming amount of inventory. You'll be asked to find keys and codes to doors and combine inventory, among other things, in order to progress. I really like the look of this game and how its aesthetic combines noir pulp and demons. The environments are twisted and evocative, but also very colorful.
Unfortunately, I didn't like how it played all that much.
The jumps are a little floaty and combat doesn't feel great. You have a tiny little weapon to thrust at enemies, a parry which is hard to time, and a flare gun with limited ammo. Load times are long, which makes any death frustrating. I bounced off this one fairly quickly when it first came out, though it has received a number of patches since then. One thing I do really like is that it has a variety of difficulty options. You can individually adjust how challenging combat, puzzle solving, and exploration are.
I do like the idea of solving puzzles in this kind of game, but as I went on, I found which way to go next became quite obtuse, and traversal just wasn't that fun.
Blasphemous 2 was developed by the Game Kitchen. As the follow-up to one of my top 5 Metroidvanias of all time, I was very excited for it. Again, you play the penitent one, traveling through a beautiful pixelated world inspired by Spanish Catholicism.
From a gameplay feel perspective, this improves on the first game in almost every way. There are no more instant death spike pits, the penitent one is much more agile, has a lot more movement abilities, and has 3 different weapons to choose from.
Each of the weapons also lets you perform certain platforming challenges. Combat is satisfying, with weapon-specific moves as well as spells to combine to defeat your foes. The map is also quite fun to explore, with lots of different items to find that will upgrade your character in some way. Unfortunately, the aesthetic, which is a big part of why I loved the first one, just seems a little less special here. There are a few screens where the art and environment are beautiful, but for the most part they lack the detail and depth from the first game. Bosses are thematically very cool, but visually most of them are disappointingly humanoid rather than great monstrosities. And the gruesome finishing moves have mostly been changed to just wrapping an opponent in thorns and squishing them, rather than having unique and bloody deaths for each enemy type. The designs of the NPCs is the one place where I think this game lives up to the first.
The story, quests, and world overall just seem a little less weird and impressive than the first. That said, Blasphemous 2 is still a very good game and well worth playing.
Laika Aged Through Blood was developed by Brainwash Games. This is the most mechanically unique game in the genre I played this year. Laika has you playing a coyote on a motorcycle, roaming an apocalyptic wasteland in search of vengeance. This is an absolutely beautiful game. The art, the color palette, and the environments are all absolutely top-notch. The story is dark and grim, incredibly violent.
On the surface, the game looks amazing, but it was one of the most frustrating gaming experiences I've had this year.
You control the speed of your bike with left trigger and angle and balance of the bike with the left stick, and you shoot with the right trigger and stick. You can deflect bullets with your bike and slow down time. If you want to reload your deflector ammo, you need to do a forward or backwards flip. It's very different from the usual platforming, and my poor brain just couldn't get the hang of it. Occasionally, I did feel pretty badass when I pulled off a series of moves, but then I usually hit the left stick and fell forwards onto my face, instantly dying. It's one-hit kills all around.
The thing is, I don't think the controls are bad. They're actually quite responsive. I think the problem is me. I am bad. I'm pretty sure there's a demo of this available on PC, which I would suggest you try before you buy the game if you're at all able to. I think if you get along with the control scheme, this game could be really special. Unfortunately, I just didn't, and I had to quit before I threw a controller.
Ebenezer and the Invisible World was developed by Play On Worlds and Orbit Studios. You play Ebenezer Scrooge after the events of A Christmas Carol on a mission to make some other rich asshole change his ways. New abilities are gained in the form of ghosts who will join you and allow you to do things like double jump, dash through bars, or bounce off balloons. Ghosts can also do attacks using your spirit meter. You can find different weapons, healing items, and do simple crafting.
While the premise is unique and visually it can be quite pretty, unfortunately this one never gets better than just okay.
Scrooge feels more sluggish to control as he gets more abilities, as every animation is doubled by showing both his movement and the ghost that's helping him. There are a myriad of small issues that add up to make the game a little frustrating to play. Save rooms are too far apart, the UI and map aren't great, and there should be way more fast travel points. The story is also not that interesting, and there is too much dialogue and fetch quests. There are a couple levels in the game that do stand out visually, or by adding platforming challenges and simple puzzles.
Ebenezer is fine, but it doesn't really excel at anything, and it's not that exciting to play. I do have a full review up if you want to check that out. So those were the Metroidvanias I played that released in 2023. Unfortunately, there were more misses than hits for me, though I very much enjoyed Afterimage, Blasphemous 2, and Elderand. I found a number of games put way more effort into nailing a certain art style or unique mechanic, and not enough into just making sure the game feels good to play. One game I feel I really missed out on is The Last Faith, which just released recently. I will hopefully play that early next year. I'm also really wanting to play Lone Fungus, but I'm waiting for a console release, which hopefully happens. I'm sure there will be a ton more Metroidvanias to choose from next year. Obviously, I'm looking forward to Silksong if that ever comes out. Earlier this month, I had a chance to play the first 2 or 3 hours of the new Prince of Persia game, and it is excellent, so I'm really looking forward to getting to play the whole thing in January. Leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite Metroidvanias of the year are and what you're excited to play.
If you want to see more, check out my playlist of Metroidvania reviews, or another of my videos. I have a Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.